channel. As you can see by the title, it is 6 months after or during or it. I've had this M4 for 6 months, so we're going to do. What's that? Our fuel light's just come on. Nice. That's something to talk about straight away. Fuel consumption, but I've got a couple of errands to do today. We need to go and do some update videos. But I'm going to talk about my first 6 months with my BMW M4 as the parking sensors come on. Of course I do. We're interrupting today's video to give a massive thank you to today's sponsor, Azolver.
Azolver is the first app ever designed to ease the process of appealing for parking tickets with pre-written templates, rightly structured with an editing feature that gives you total control if you want to add or delete any content. It covers both private land parking tickets and councils. Azolver also offers quick insurance quotes with just 4 easy steps from the UK's only real-time pay-by-mile policy, which means the less you drive, the less you pay. That could save you over 50% on your insurance bill. Lastly, Azolver has an expenditures manager where you can manage all your expenses. Just open the feature, take a picture of your receipt to fill in some details like price description and save it, and it's done. Perfect for self-employed drivers out there that are wanting to keep all of their parking tickets, insurance-based pay-by-mile policies and expenditures all in one app.
Again, massive thank you to the guys at Azolver for sponsoring today's video. Remember, link is in the description to the app. This is the perfect way for all these self-employed people out there to track everything you need to. Expenditures, parking tickets, pretty much everything is on this app. But let's get back to the action. Now, as I reverse, first couple of things. Please buy your M4 with a reversing camera. At some point in the past, I had cars that were incredibly cheap, as in £3,000 Lexuses with very good reversing cameras. This doesn't have a reversing camera. Yes, that is something that I might have glossed past when I bought this thing, but the only problem here, and this is from a daily driving perspective, is getting this car into a space without a reversing camera is incredibly hard, because the rear end is so wide and the mirrors they're a great shape, but they're not exactly large, they're long. I know it sounds really odd, but only someone that drives a car like this every day will actually know this. But yeah, you can't see a lot past the door handles, if I'm quite honest. The car sort of slopes back, and yes, the reversing sensors do a very good job, don't get me wrong. They seem to, and this is across all of the BMW range I've noticed, they seem to beep, and the beep comes so close to what you're actually getting towards that you have to go incredibly slow up to said wall, tree, parking spot, whatever. You have to go incredibly slow up to that, because you will unfortunately probably tap it if you're going a little bit faster. Like Audi models, like many AMG models are the same. They have a little bit more in the sense of leeway when you're actually reversing something up. Wanted to start with that because daily driving a car like this, yes, you know this car is good to drive, you know it's exciting, you know it's a good bit of fun, but the reality is daily driving this is actually a lot of effort. Now, I'm going to get onto the idea that yes, this is a fantastic car. It is a tool of monumental B-road bashing and cruising on the motorways. It literally does everything. It's doing 22 mpg round town at the moment, so I think that's really good going, considering that is going around town, you know, stop start traffic. I don't use the stop start in this. It's very slow, I believe. I feel like it's slow and juddery to stop and start at the same time, especially through traffic. Once you do it a couple of times, and that's not just this car, it's across the BMW range. And I'm saying all this because I'm not deterring you from driving an M car. M car fanboys will be very butthurt in the comments that I'm saying these little bits and bobs, but it's because I want to own and drive a car like this. This isn't a press car. I don't take press cars for long periods of time. I've had one for a week before. I put my money where my mouth is. Not a lot of other creators do that sometimes, where they put their money where their mouth is into a car that is on the market, that is readily available, that everybody can go and, you know, pretty much finance a car like this. And I find what it's actually like to be with, because when I have, you know, a shoot of this car, say, and you're down this big road, you give it the big one into second gear, and you give it the big one and it goes sideways, and yeah, that's fantastic. But you only that. Sometimes, half the time, 50% of the time, 25% of the time, sometimes you got work, kids, all this sort of stuff going on. Sometimes that's not a reality for you to actually enjoy it in that sense. A large truck coming. Breathe in and breathe back out. That's another thing. The car is, it's large, yes, and I can position this car really well in the road. I feel I can, because I've had larger cars, Dodge Ram, BMW X6, you know, various cars like that are incredibly big. This is bigger in a different way because it's low, and you're low and wide instead of big and wide. And sometimes big and wide you can get away with a little bit more because you know where the points of the car is. And this is going back to the idea that the rear end is so, not necessarily far away, but the door handle here, it makes you think that there isn't a lot more to the back of the car when there is. Right, next thing is there is a large bus right here. He's letting me through. Cool. Now that's not something a lot of people out there that will compete with on a daily basis, because I live on the Isle of Wight. I have a lot of narrow roads. We're currently on the road again, another road that has no white lines in the middle of it. So that shows how small the roads are here sometimes. And yes, having a Dodge Ram down here was a good bit of laugh, and you could only really take it down the main roads. But me threading this through the back roads and stuff, you know, the back roads that are very small with, again, no white lines like this road is, you are challenged sometimes with the size of the car. And that's not something that I would usually say, because I'm usually very understanding with the size of cars, because I love big cars. I love a massive car. It's something that I really enjoy. Big VIP cars, big sedans, you know, 4 doors, big trucks, stuff like that, I actually enjoy. This is on a very different level. As if you're coming to, you know, there's a Fiesta in front of me. If you're coming from one of those, or an S3, you know, a similar hatchback, say, then you'll get in this and feel like you're in a spaceship because it's so wide. Now, I've left the stop start on to show you guys, so we'll come off. The judder, and that's across the BMW range, is constant. The judder of going into gear, because, you know, automated gearboxes and all this sort of business, makes it fantastic for drivability. But if you leave that stop start on, in my opinion, you just become uncomfortable with the idea it's throwing itself into gear constantly. So I'm throwing that off. But that was a classic case in point. We come up to a junction there, and it just stop started, and that's cool. It stop started. Now, if I was on a hill and I took my foot off the brake, it will hold it, yes. Sometimes it doesn't really want to do that, so you have to whip the handbrake on. That's not this car. That is across the M range, and I know there were people out there like, no, it doesn't do that. It does on the Isle of Wight, mate. I've driven this for 6 months, and I can tell when a car isn't in gear and it wants to sort of judder into gear. And that's not this car. It is a blanket over the M range. It's because, again, clutch, automated gearbox, you know, throws itself into gear, all that sort of stuff. I don't mind that, don't get me wrong. It's just you have to remind yourself to. You can map out the stop start if you really want to. That's something that I would probably do down the line, but because I'm not really a stop start fan anyway, I don't really. It's just silly. If you go through London, yeah, but not on the Isle of Wight, silly. But yeah, I usually try and keep that off if I am just doing, you know, the daily driving around and enjoying this thing. Another thing, if it is in sport mode, it will try and engage the stop start again. Literally don't know why it does that. Silly idea from BMW, really. If you're, you know, enjoying this M car like you should, still create stop start. I don't get that silliness. But it's not negative. It's not negative, this video. We're going to get onto the positives, because comfort is really high. Although I've dropped this on some H&R springs, it is still mega comfy. It's got bucket seats, and I am the first person to tell you guys if it's not comfortable, because I sometimes really hate bucket seats in cars. I love, again, a big luxury car, and this is sort of luxury but daily but race car at the same time. So it's got these bucket seats from factory, and they're actually incredibly comfortable. Done a couple of trips in this, you know, a couple of hours, 3 hours at the most, and I still have enjoyed sitting in this seat. It's wide enough. You've still got a good wide set if you drive like that. I drive really wide in that sense, wide guy, you know what I'm saying? But I drive like I'm in an armchair, and I love that experience of driving thick, I suppose, driving, you know, with your knees apart, and, you know, you're just enjoying it, but you can still sort of grab the steering wheel and enjoy it if you want to, but you can relax at the same time. This car does that really, really well. I will say though, if you do put it into sport suspension, it turns the car into an undrivable, horrible mess. I don't like it whatsoever, so that always stays in comfort mode. The BMW M stuff, when it goes from comfort into Sport Plus, say, is so hard. I hate it. So I never put this thing in Sport Plus mode on the suspension. Always keep it in comfort. RS3 was the same, in my opinion, with the magnetic suspension. I feel that they are too crashy. So maybe it's just me and I'm old, but the car feels better in comfort mode. And reliability, I'm going to say, you know, 6 months in, thankfully, nothing's gone wrong. We've, you know, thrown this on the dyno. It's just under 500 horsepower. We will, you know, maybe assess that at some point. And the last thing to say is, and it's my problem, it's my fault, taking my kids to school in this is a bloody nightmare. It does my head in because of the back seats and the fact that you have to drop the seat forward and then you electrically put it forward and then you can't put it back, so you've got to electrically put it back, and it's a big palaver. So I use my missus' car more than anything for the school run, and I use this for enjoying. And I would like to use this more for school runs and going to the shops and stuff, and I don't mind using it. It's just a bit more of palaver when there's a 4-door car. That is totally my fault though. And I get it, there'll be someone in the comments, well, what do you expect as a 2-door? I know. It's a silly thing to say, but keep that in mind. Paying overs for an M3 because it's got 4 doors, if you need the 4 doors, is probably the way to go. I personally didn't need or thought I need the 4 doors. Looking back, probably should have just paid, well, it was about $5 more at the time for an M3, which is a shame. But looking back, if you're going to finance that, you know, say it's £50 a month more, £100 a month more, might be the shout. Anyway, this isn't, again, I'm going to say at the end of this video, this is not a tear into the M4 whatsoever. I love this car. It is so much fun. It is a riot to drive, and nothing feels like an M car. I'm going to say that now. Go and buy one, own it for a while, and you'll see what I mean, because this car is an absolute tool of perfection. We'll put it in 1M mode. Second gear, and letter E. Short shifting at like 4,000 RPM. It is literally a weapon, this car, absolute weapon. And I'm so happy that I got to enjoy an M car that's feasibly easy for people to get into, like this one, for an extended period of time. Because again, I'm trying not to take press cars, I'm trying to take my money and understand these cars, have my time in an M4 or an M car of this shape and understand it. You know, mid-20s, 30 grand this car is, say, on a good day. And to be honest, mate, I'm glad I put my money into it, because it's such a nice place to be. It's such a fun car. And yes, there's a couple of drawbacks, but I only noticed that because I've owned other performance cars. If I had this on test from BMW, I wouldn't have noticed those things. And I've had now RS3 on test from Audi. Guess what? I probably wouldn't have noticed them either. So I try and put my money where my mouth is. So I'm going to put my money where my mouth is into an AMG car at some point. Leave a comment below if you'd want to see that. Me trading this in for an AMG car. Might happen, might not. We'll see what the market does, because everything's pretty crazy at the moment. But thank you so much for watching, guys. I'll see you on the next one.